The Secret Garden, adapted for English language learners at Level A2 by Story Steps.
Chapter 7. Growing Strong. April passed and May began. The three children came to the secret garden almost every day, arriving early in the mornings when the air was fresh and cool, leaving only when the light faded into evening. No matter the weather, they came, rain, sunshine, or cloud-laden skies. The garden had become their world, their place of healing and growth. The servants at the manor noticed Colin was going out, but they were too careful about his moods to ask where. Colin spoke to Mrs. Medlock in a firm voice. "I am taking the air on the grounds," he said. "It is good for me. You are not to ask questions." Mrs. Medlock did not ask. The servants saw that Colin was different. He was not having his terrible rages anymore. He was not refusing his meals or throwing things across the room. He was not crying in the night, or at least much less often. He was eating all his food and sleeping much better. Slowly, colour was coming back to his face. "He is better," Martha said quietly to Mary one morning. "Whatever you are doing, miss, it is working." "He is doing it himself," said Mary. "He just needed somewhere to go and something to do." In the garden, Colin's change was even greater. He walked every day, growing stronger with each passing week. At first, Dickon stayed close beside him, ready if he stumbled or grew tired. Soon Colin walked alone, his steps becoming firmer and more confident. His legs strengthened week by week. He became fascinated by the science of growing plants, how they drew water through their roots, why some thrived in sun while others preferred shade, what nutrients the soil provided. Dickon had never had a student quite like Colin, eager and curious about everything. He answered every question patiently, with the knowledge of someone who had spent his whole life watching nature work. He brought books from his cottage, old gardening books with worn covers and handwritten notes, books about birds and their behaviours, a book about soil science from the village school. Colin read them all in the evenings by candlelight and came to the garden each morning with more questions, his notebook filled with drawings and thoughts. Mary watched Colin change. She felt something new inside her and recognised it as pride. Not pride in herself, but pride in him. It was an unfamiliar feeling, something she had never experienced before. She had never cared about how another person was doing or what happened to them. Now, watching Colin grow stronger and happier each day, she found that she did care. It surprised her, this new feeling. It was bigger than she expected. One afternoon in mid-May, they sat together under the arch of roses. It was fully covered in green leaves, with hundreds of buds forming along the branches, ready to burst into bloom. The air smelled of warm earth and growing things, rich and alive. Soot was somewhere in the apple tree, making soft croaking sounds. Nut was asleep in Dickon's jacket pocket, his small body warm and peaceful. "I was thinking about something," said Colin. He was wearing his thinking expression, a slight frown with his eyes focused on something far away, about what makes people well. "Tell us," said Mary. "I was thinking about how plants grow," Colin said. "They do not grow just because the conditions are right. They do not grow just because they have water and soil and light. There is something inside them that wants to grow, some kind of force that pushes outward toward the light, even before it can see the light." "Yes," said Dickon, "exactly." "I think people work the same way," Colin continued carefully. "There is a force in living things, in us, that wants to be well and to grow. I think something happens if a person concentrates on that force, gives attention to it, believes in it. The force grows stronger." He said this very carefully. He worried they might think him foolish. Mary did not think he was foolish at all. "Like medicine," she said. "Like medicine, but from inside," said Colin. "I read about it, about how thoughts affect the body. There is science behind it." He paused. "I want to try it properly. Every day here in the garden, I want to stand up and say it out loud. I am going to be well. The force is working in me. I want you to say it too." There was a brief silence. "All right," said Dickon simply. "All right," said Mary. From that day forward, they did it each morning. Colin stood in the middle of the garden as straight as possible and said out loud, "I am well. I am strong. The force in me is working. I am going to be completely well." It felt strange at first. It also felt true. The truest thing they did all day. Colin grew stronger, and there was no hiding it. He walked the full circle of the garden without rest. He dug alongside Dickon. He did the work well. He was beginning to look, for the first time in his life, like a healthy boy. One Thursday morning in late May, Ben Weatherstaff was working on the outside of the garden wall. He was standing on a tall ladder, cutting back ivy that had grown over the top. He was nearly above the section where Colin was exercising. Dickon had shown him movements to strengthen his legs and back. Ben looked over the top of the wall and saw Colin standing upright in the garden, arms out to the side, face pointed toward the sky. He looked strong and healthy. Ben Weatherstaff nearly fell off the ladder. "You!" he burst out. "You were walking! You were standing up straight and you were walking!" Colin looked up at the old man staring down from the wall. He did not look shy or afraid. He looked at Ben steadily and calmly. A quiet power showed in his face, something new, something the old gardener had never seen in him before. This was not the sickly, frightened boy of the locked room. This was someone different. "Yes," Colin said. "I am walking. I intend to keep walking and to get stronger every day." "But the doctors said, everyone said." "The doctors were looking at me as if I was going to die," said Colin. "I believed this for a long time. I decided not to die, not for a very long time yet." A small smile crossed his face. "Come down from the ladder, Ben Weatherstaff. Come through the door and see our work in here." Ben came down from the ladder carefully and came through the garden door. Mary held it open for him, standing aside. He walked slowly through the garden, moving carefully between the flower beds. His eyes were wide with wonder and emotion. He was seeing something he had waited a long time to see. The garden alive again after 10 years of silence. He stopped in front of the rose beds, the same roses he had tended from the outside for 10 years. He had cut the climbing ones from the outside of the wall. He had talked to them through the stone. He was unable to stop doing it. "The roses," he said. His voice was rough with feeling. She loved to see them like this. She planted every one of them herself. "Mrs. Craven?" asked Colin carefully. "Aye, this was her garden. She made it herself and put everything in it with her own hands. She was a lovely woman, your mother. She died in here. She fell from the branch of the apple tree over there. The branch broke under her. She did not live an hour after." He stopped and cleared his throat. "Mr. Craven locked it the same week. He was unable to bear anyone in it. I tended the roses growing over the wall. I was unable to let them go completely. The 4 of them were quiet. They stood in the warm garden with the roses blooming all around them. She loved it," said Mary at last. "Maybe her love brought it back to life again." "Aye," said Ben. "Maybe so." He looked at Mary, at Colin, at the garden. "You 3 did a good thing here, a very good thing." Later in the evening, a letter arrived at the manor for Mrs. Medlock. It was from Mr. Archibald Craven. He wrote that he was cutting short his travels and would be home within 2 weeks. Mary heard this at supper. She thought about it quietly all evening. Colin did not know his father. Mr. Craven had never spent time with Colin and had barely been in the same room with him. Looking at Colin was painful for Mr. Craven. Colin looked like his mother, and Mr. Craven had stayed away. Things were different now. Everything was different now. Mary fell asleep thinking, "Let him come. We are ready."